Yay! Welcome back to your favorite cooking channel where we keep it simple and real. Yep, cooking with Abba. And I'm so glad you're able to join in today. Please just don't watch. Please make sure you do subscribe. Make sure you do like. Make sure you leave a comment. Make sure you leave a suggestion. And let's go into today's video. I told you I'm going to be making a few special dieting recipes. Yes, they're not going to be that few. I mean, numerous. Yeah, this is dieting friendly, but then after the video I'm going to show you some options because you can equally eat it on a regular day if you're not dieting. Yes, and I'm going to give you some extra tips about how to go about it, or other ingredients you can use for it, and other techniques you can use as well. So please do well to watch this special corned beef balls recipe, keto friendly corned beef balls recipe. And I'll meet you after for some special tips if you're not on a ketogenic diet, or if you're not dieting, or if you can't find coconut flour around. Yay! So today we're doing our corned beef balls and we use coconut flour. So this is keto friendly corned beef ball. We're going to show you equally how to go about it without if you're not doing keto and not dieting. So for our corned beef ball we need some spice and some onion. Yeah, so I used powdered pepper, I used some powdered turmeric, some powdered cloves, and I equally had some onion, coconut flour as well. Then I had some oil. You can use coconut oil or any oil of your preference. Yes, and an egg, which is going to help bind everything together. And I used a bit of the foil, and you need some baking pan as well. I baked this because of the coconut flour. This works best when you bake it, and of course the corned beef. So to start off, the corned beef, if you don't have corned beef or you want to use natural peas, you can just mince your meat as well. If you mince your meat, you'd have to pre-cook it before you use it. Maybe you may fry in your pan with a little bit of oil before you can do the recipe. But I'm using corned beef here, so any corned beef of your preference. Just be mindful that some of the corned beef can be overly moist, some can be a bit salty. So depending on the type of corned beef you are using and whether you're going to use more coconut flour or not. And to substitute coconut flour, you could equally use you could use breadcrumbs, you could use a little bit of yam or a little bit of potato just to bind it together, or your breadcrumbs. So to kickstart, I'm doing the keto version, which is keto friendly, and even dieting or you're not dieting, you can still use it. So I just poured everything into it. So the spices I was using plus the onion, everything went in, and realize I used powdered foam. Yes, that's to check with the water. Then I added in an egg. The egg is equally going to help with the binding of it. So I just mix it all up together. Then I add in the coconut flour. Yes, usually when I use the corned beef, the regular size, I end up using about 2 or 3 tablespoons of the coconut flour. Coconut flour, so if you use so much, by the time it's done sitting, it was going to be too hard. So for coconut flour, when you're mixing, you don't want it to be too dense when you're mixing. Mix it, but let it be a bit moist because you need to let it sit for the coconut to absorb the moisture in there, or the water in there. So when you're done, you foil it nicely. If you don't have a foil, you can just use your napkin to cover it nicely. If your bowl has a lid, you can cover it nicely. Put it down to sit for a while, maybe about 10-15 minutes for it to come together nicely. So once that is sitting, you can base your baking sheets. You don't want them to stick inside, so just a little oil to base it up, and you can start preheating your oven. Yes, I use that at the same here because I'm just using a little quantity, and you can actually bake with it at the same without using an oven. So you can do this. The coconut flour, because it's not too firm, if you fry it will flake. So it's always better if you're doing this, you bake it. And you know, baking is also good because you tend to avoid more oil being used. Yes, So you can use your scoop. This is my ice cream scoop I was using for this purpose. Yes, so you have a scoop. You can use your scoop to just mold your shape nicely if you don't want your hand doing the work. You can equally use a spoon. Yes, so I use a 2 spoons. That's what I call it, 2 spoons method. You just use a spoon to just roll it, and you still get your shape, the circles nicely. So if you don't want to use your hand, these are some of the options you can use, your scoop or your spoon. But I like to use my hand because it helps me with I'm able to feel whether my texture is okay for me or not. Yes, so personally I use my hand to go, and that's faster, and I can get my balls, quickly done and hastily done. So once you're done, and by now you should have preheated your oven, because once you're done, it's just going straight into the baking area. So I just place it in nicely, then I cover it up. So I'm just going to maintain the heat in there. It was on medium heat. I heated with high, but when I'm baking, I used medium. So after 10-15 minutes, you're going to get it a bit brown. What you want to do is to oil the top, because you're not going to be turning it over. So you oil the top so the top doesn't look too dry. Then you rotate it. Then you allow it to also cook for about 5 minutes. And within 20 minutes, you should be done with this, depending on the quantity you are doing. And you can try to get it brown like this, or you can leave it a little bit less brown. And that is about your corned beef balls, simple as ABCD. So I hope you give this recipe a try. Yay! So I hope you did learn how to make the corned beef balls like I do. Yes, and these are tasty, they are nice, they are not too tough. Charlie, if they do, if you don't take it, you eat them. Yes, so if you're not on a ketogenic diet, you can replace your coconut flour with pastry flour. You can even replace it with breadcrumbs instead. Breadcrumbs, that's the trick, better off than the flour. And if you don't have breadcrumbs, you can always go in for potato. You can use less potato or just anything to bind it. So they're going to use potato, you're going to use yam, just a little to bind it. But ideally, if you don't have the coconut flour, the best would be the breadcrumb. And if you want to do the breadcrumbs, or a simple when your bread gets old or you have bread, maybe you can let it stay overnight or something. But when it's too fresh, it may be a bit too sticky. But when your bread stays for longer, you realize it becomes a bit more dry. So just break it into smaller crumbs and you leave it in the sun to dry around here. If not, you can put it in your oven to dry it up. Once it's crisp, you can just put it in a bag, roll your rolling pin over, or crush it to make it smooth. And that's how to make your breadcrumbs. So you can replace the coconut flour with breadcrumbs if you are not dieting. But if you're on a ketogenic diet, then your best option is a coconut flour. Or you can just use a bit of almond flour in. But for best results, use your coconut flour. And that's how I make my corned beef balls. Yes, my keto-friendly corned beef balls. So I hope this goes well for my dieters. Yes, I don't want to leave you guys out. Yes, I do a little bit of diet once in a while because you see, I'm always cooking. I don't want to look too chubby. Yes, and these are the things that help me out. So I hope you try this personally. Yes, and give me your feedback. And I almost forgot one technique to go about it. If you don't want to bake it and you want to fry, you have to be super careful. Honestly, the best way to go about this is to bake. Unlike the breadcrumb where you can fry, or the one with a bit of yam and those ones, if you're using purely coconut flour, it's going to be tough to fry. If you don't take care, it's going to flake out. But then if you do it like this, it's safer. So if you want to use a coconut flour, please do well to bake. And once you're done baking it, you can eat it directly like that. You can use it in your stews. You can even do sauce with it. It's a super finger licking. So I hope you do give this recipe a try. I hope you like it. I hope you do leave your comment behind. And lots of love for my team and I. Make sure you meet us in the food moment as we make every food moment count. Lots of love for my team and I. Mwah.